In 2020, Nintendo sold more consoles than PlayStation and Xbox combined. Not close. Nintendo moved 28.8 million Switch units that year, while PlayStation managed 11 million and Xbox just 5. That is a company with a device most people called underpowered, outselling two next-generation launches at the same time. Console sales ranked 10 years of PlayStation, Nintendo, and Xbox by the numbers. Let's start at the beginning. It is 2014, and the console war looks exactly like you'd expect. PlayStation is number one with 14.8 million units sold. Xbox is a close second at 12 million, a gap of less than 3 million. Nintendo is a distant third with just 3.3 million, the Wii U struggling badly. The race looks tight between Sony and Microsoft. It will not stay that way. Between 2014 and 2016, PlayStation does not just hold the lead, it runs away. Sony goes from 14.8 million to 20 million units in just 2 years. Their market share hits 69% in 2017. That means nearly 7 out of every 10 consoles sold on Earth that year was a PlayStation 4. Xbox drops from 12 million down to 8 million over the same period. And Nintendo? They bottom out at just 800,000 units in 2016. That is not a typo. Less than 1 million consoles in an entire year. Nintendo sold fewer than 1 million consoles in all of 2016. The Wii U was on life support. Almost nobody saw what was about to happen next. March 2017, Nintendo launches the Switch. It is part home console, part handheld, and the gaming world genuinely does not know what to make of it. The answer comes fast. Nintendo sells 17.8 million Switch units in 2017 alone. That is a jump from 800,000 to 17.8 million in a single year, a 22 times increase. For the first time since 2014, PlayStation does not have a commanding lead. Sony sells 19 million that year. Nintendo sells 17.8 million. The gap is barely over 1 million units. The Switch was a bet that players wanted to game anywhere. That bet paid off faster than almost any product launch in gaming history. Watch what happens next in the chart. 2018, Nintendo and PlayStation are nearly tied again. 17.4 versus 17.8 million. Xbox is stuck at 7 million and going nowhere. Then 2019 arrives, and something remarkable happens. Nintendo passes PlayStation for the first time in this entire dataset. Nintendo sells 21 million Switch units. PlayStation sells only 13.6 million as the PS4 cycle winds down. Nintendo is number one, and Xbox is down to 5 million, a shadow of its 2014 self when it was a genuine contender. 2020 is the year that defies explanation, until you remember what happened to the world. COVID-19 locks people inside. Console demand explodes. And right in the middle of this, Sony and Microsoft both launch new hardware, the PS5 and Xbox Series X and S. New console launches always dip in annual volume because supply is constrained and old-gen buyers wait. Sony ships 11 million units. Xbox ships 5 million. But Nintendo? The Switch is already in full production, already at scale, already beloved. Nintendo ships 28.8 million units. That is their highest single-year total ever. Their market share in 2020 hit 64%, almost two-thirds of all consoles sold on the planet. 2021 should have been PlayStation's comeback year. The PS5 had launched, people wanted it badly, and demand was real. But there was a global chip shortage. Semiconductors were impossible to get. Sony could only ship 11.5 million PS5 units, basically the same as the year before. Xbox managed 8 million. Nintendo, whose Switch uses older, cheaper chips, was barely affected. They sold 23.1 million units and stayed number one for the third year running. The chip shortage did not hurt all three companies equally. It almost exclusively punished the two companies that had just launched power-hungry next-generation hardware. By 2022, the chip shortage eases. PlayStation comes back hard. Sony ships 19.1 million PS5 units, reclaiming the number one spot for the first time since 2018. On Nintendo drops to 17.7 million as the Switch enters its mature phase. Xbox stays at 7.5 million, a number that barely changes no matter what year you look at. Then 2023, PlayStation extends the lead to 20.8 million, its highest annual total since 2016. Nintendo falls further to 15.7 million. A major milestone passes quietly in 2023. The Switch crosses 130 million lifetime units, officially passing the original Wii as one of the best-selling consoles ever made. The Switch hits 130 million lifetime units in 2023, passing the original Wii. It is now one of the best-selling gaming devices in history, launched with almost no expectations. 2024 is the final year of our data. PlayStation holds number one at 18.5 million units, commanding 52.9% market share. Nintendo drops to 11 million as Switch hardware ages toward end of life. The Switch 2 has been announced for 2025, so buyers are waiting. Xbox falls to 5.5 million, its lowest total in our entire data set, with just 15.7% market share. The three-way race that once looked competitive has settled into a clear order. PlayStation on top, Nintendo in the middle, Xbox a distant and fading third. So what does 10 years of console data actually tell us? PlayStation won the decade on raw numbers, but Nintendo pulled off the harder trick. They collapsed to under a million units in 2016 and came back to outsell everyone twice and build one of the best-selling devices in gaming history. Xbox never found that answer. From 12 million units and a real second-place fight in 2014, they drifted to 5.5 million by 2024, and no hardware launch reversed that slide. The console war is not over. Switch 2 arrives in 2025. PlayStation holds strong. But right now, looking back at this decade of data, the story belongs to a little hybrid device that nobody was sure would work. If you want to see how these numbers compare to the broader gaming market, including mobile and PC, that breakdown is coming next.